Now, Bathsheba had left a comment under my video here, which she's more than welcome to do, and more than welcome to ask questions. Yes, I did say that I was in the penitentiary. The thing of this is, I left her a reply, and it doesn't show up here. You can see the reply. I'm clicking on it. Doesn't show up here, and it doesn't show up under the video. If I go to the video, it's the one I did about Sully. It just doesn't go there. So let me put that video up. Look
See
under it.
these people.
Look under it. When you do that, you freak me out. But see, I did leave her a comment and it just won't show up. I don't know if that's because she's got me blocked somehow. She left another comment in under my videos that said BSJ says, well, I'm actually BSJ. That's BryanSt.John, and you can call me Bryan. But I left you a comment and I'll explain it to you once again. So what she says was, you said you were in the penitentiary. What were you in for? Are you a convicted felon then? Yes, I am a convicted felon, but I actually had that one felony removed off of my record. It took a while to get it done. I had to do that so I could join the service. But after 2 years of no traffic tickets, no interactions with the police, in the state of Ohio, you can have one felony removed from your record. I was at Pickaway Correctional Institution. My number was 305236. I was convicted of burglary with intent to commit felonious assault. I was looking at 2 to 15 years in prison. So what had happened was, and I can show you better than I can tell you. First, I want to show you where we lived at. My first wife and I lived in Dayton, Ohio. My first wife, Melissa, and we lived in this townhouse apartment up here. We're on Redwood Drive, and I have to show you the back. The whole incident took place in this building. I remember I got drunk one night when I drank and drove, and I would drive. I parked my car right up under the house. I got a ticket for that. I don't drink anymore. I had a big Crown Victoria when I came out. It was parked in the yard. Okay, but I have to show you the back. This is the back of the complex, which it looks so much better back then. This has been since 1994. This is the back of the complex, and we would park our cars in here. There were no assigned spots. We could fit, several cars in there. And there was one guy that lived in this apartment right here. His name was Billy Ivory, a 19-year-old punk. He was a gangster's disciple. Lived in there with his mother. And he would generally park his car right here. Well, my wife, I worked for Emory Air Freight at the time, and my wife, Melissa, she decided that she was going to park her car right there because there were no assigned spots. It was just a first come first serve. So she parked her car right there, and he came and knocked on the door. And let me see if I can see the inside of it. If it shows the inside of it. No, I can't find anything on the inside of it. I just can't believe how bad this area looks. This was actually quite expensive to live in back then. And the road is going. You would never see anything like that. This used to be, all of this used to be paved back here. It was a pretty decent neighborhood, actually. But she decided that she wanted to park there. And the guy's out there. He came and knocked on our door. We lived in this big apartment right here. He knocked on her door, and I wasn't home. And he told her, "You're gonna move your car from my spot." And she said, "I am not moving my car. We don't have assigned spots, and I'm not moving my car." "Yeah, bitch, you're gonna move that car." And she wouldn't. She wouldn't move it. So she's standing out in the hallway a little bit there. There's a stairway that goes. There's 2 apartments down here and 2 up there. There's a stairway right there. And she was out in the hallway when he said it, so he hauled off and smacked her right upside the head. So she went in the door, and called me. He's beating on her door, and so she calls me at work and says, "Oh, Billy just smacked me upside the head, blah 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 blah." And so I proceeded to clock out from every air freight. It wasn't my shift wasn't over. I clocked out, and my boss asked me when I said I got a problem at home, and he said go handle it. And when I pulled up, I parked my car right here. That's where I like to park. I had a big Crown Victoria back then. I parked my car right here, and I went, and she had a big mark on her face. She had not called the police. She didn't call the police yet. Because she was afraid of him. So I know I'm beating on his door down at the end of our hallway. And I said, come on out here, motherfucker, blah, blah, blah. He opens the door. He was 19. He opens the door. He lives in there with his mom. And I said, come on out here, buddy. I ain't got tits. I said, go ahead, put your hands on me and see what I do. And he's kind of laughing behind the door. And his mother's right behind him with a 9mm over top of his head, pointing it at me. And when I saw that gun, I slipped into some kind of weird fucking mode, but I kicked his door in. That's how you get burglar. I kicked the chain. I smacked that gun out of her hand, and I grabbed him in a headlock, and I dragged him out in the hallway, and I began to play with his face with my fist. I beat the fire out of him, knocked a couple teeth out, and then when I kicked him down on the ground, I broke his ribs. All right, and so he went to the hospital. He went to the hospital for that. And then I went back into my house and sat down to eat my dinner, and the police came and arrested me. So I was charged with burglary since my foot went inside of the door, since I reached inside of the dwelling where people were occupied. I reached inside and I dragged him out, and I beat the fire out of him. The felonious assault was because he went to the hospital. It wasn't just a regular assault. He went to the hospital. He had bodily damage, bad bodily damage, because he hurt her. He scared my wife. So I'm looking at 2 to 15 years, and they're trying to get me to take a plea deal and get probation, you know. And I said, no, I'm just going to tell the judge what I did. I said, because I'm not embarrassed of it. I'm not ashamed of it. I'm not ashamed. I didn't want any deals. They wanted me to deal and get like 8 years. I said, no, I don't care. I said, I will defend my family. So anyways, unfortunately, I happen to be a white man. This young man happened to be an African American. He was a member of the Gangster Disciples Club, and they turned it into a racially motivated thing, which it wasn't. It was just a guy who put his hands on my wife to me. So, at any rate, I would not back down. I would not take any deals. And the judge said, do you have anything that you want to say before I pass sentence? I said, well, I know in the state of Ohio, I have the right to protect my family. And what kind of man would I be if I did not protect my wife against this punk over here? I had to put my hands out in front of me like this. I said, if you think you can teach me a lesson, then go ahead and lock me up. I said, but if somebody puts their hands on my wife again like that, then I'll be right here in front of you again. So he gave me 2.5 years. He gave me 2.5 years for that, which I thought for sure he was going to give me the max after that. But so I waited a couple of years after I got out. In Ohio, you can have one felony expunged off your record. It costs money, and you have to maintain a certain criteria. But yeah, I learned my lesson. I stayed over in CRC for a little while. CRC is actually the prison where uh, Ariel Castro, who kept those two girls hostage for 11 years, he hung himself in the hole down here. But I stayed in CRC for about a year, and I was on cadre status, so I got to work, and I was out most of the time. But that's maximum security. That's where all the newcomers would come in. But I got to work. Right here's the chow hall. Right here's the reception. Whether you first come in, you go to this, and then they'll send you out. The hole is right here. Right here's where you come in. This is where I got a special visit to see my son when he was born. But this is where all the cadres, the more privileged inmates, live at. I worked as a captain's clerk, which is really good for me to work as a captain's clerk because a lot of times when you get write-ups in the penitentiary, You get a write up. A guard to do something, you get a write up, and you have to go before a judge. You have to in the court, they held court in prison. And sometimes the write ups, if it would come across the captain's desk, it might not make it to the RCF. And I could do that, and I got paid for that from the other inmates. But this was a 23-hour lockdown unless you had a good job, and I had a good job. Captain's office was right in here. And there were other inmates. There were criminally insane inmates lived right over here. And part of my job was these guys weren't allowed out at all. And part of my job was that they weren't allowed to have pencils, and they weren't allowed to have a lighter in their cell. Back in that time, we're allowed to smoke. In Ohio prison, you don't smoke anymore. But one of my jobs was that I would go around and light their cigarettes for them. I'd have to take the cigarette from them and light it because they weren't allowed to have a lighter in their cell. And if they wanted to write a letter home, which you don't have to do that anymore either, they got these things, I would have to sit out there outside their cell and they would dictate it to me and I would write their letter and send it out to them. There were some really criminally insane people in there. But after that, in my second year, they sent me over here to more minimal at Pickaway. This is a more minimal prison. It doesn't look the same to me anymore. Let me see. Even from the air. Yeah, it looks totally different. Yeah, here's the prison. Here's part of the yard. This is a chow hall. That's crazy. And this used to be Orient Prison right here, which was one of the oldest prisons in Ohio. It's not a prison now, but on my second day over here in Pickaway, wow, it looks so much different. It's crazy how it looks that way. It changed everything. But we used to be able to walk around the yard, which is right in this area here. This used to be like the yard, and now they've got a road there. But my second day there was a kid over at Orient. You can see the fence line right here, right in this area right here. We all saw kind of a commotion over here, and that kid got stabbed to death over a pair of headphones. Yeah, and we saw a lot of that, but they locked the prisons down, both of them down, for a couple of days. There's another time that the power went out in this prison for a couple of days, and all you could hear was people getting thumped upside the head. I tell you, I got on my bunk and I stayed there. But so I got the minimum amount of time, and I would do the same thing tomorrow. When I say I learned my lesson, I know how shitty that this justice system is. I had plenty of witnesses that told what happened. My wife, that told what happened, that I was just defending her, and one of my friends, that I was just defending her. But the simple fact that I came home and knocked on his door, that they said I was challenging him, and I was. He put his hands on my wife, and I do the same shit tomorrow. Same shit. I'm not ashamed of it. And there's been times where supporters back in the past, they say, "Oh, he's a convicted felon. He's a convicted dangerous felon." No, I'm not. No, I'm not, because I did have that one thing, that one felony removed off my record, so I could join the military. You couldn't join the service. I wanted to go in the Marines. You couldn't join the Marines with a felony on your record. So I had it removed. The Marines still wouldn't take me because they knew I had it removed. But I got myself into the Army National Guard, Army Reserves. I wanted some military experience.